Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
A very good evening to you. We are live on Indie Live and Indie Live Radio. Of course, my name is Michael McEwan, and I'm joined tonight by Graham Duffy and the main man himself, Dave. And we are here until 8:30 tonight, and we should be joined by Josh, Henderson and David Ferguson coming pretty soon as well. Don't forget you can comment on any of tonight's comment on anything that you saw tonight on Twitter. Just look for the handle is at Locker Room Indie on Twitter, or you can email us as well at lockerroomindielive@gmail.com. Okay, so let's kick off the show. We're here until 8:30 tonight. And obviously, you can comment below as well. So, guys, the last couple of shows have been very disappointing. Tonight's show has been very positive. So, you would see a very comfortable 4-1 at the end. But I said Graham and myself had a wee kind of quick meeting before we came on there. And we lost a very kind of early goal, and that was backs to the wall. For the majority of the first half anyway, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, delighted with the 4-1 victory, but after about 40 minutes I thought that's not going to happen because defensively, again, we looked all over the place. I mean, that first goal, Grant Hanley, dearie me, what on earth was he doing? And to be honest, I mean, Jack Henry in that first half was shocking, and we just looked very suspect defensively. And there's no doubt for me that the sending off changed the game. And, it's a very good finish from Armstrong for the equaliser. Good goal. But the sending off changes the game. And then the second goal, it's a great goal from Armstrong. It's a lovely touch, as Alan McCoy said during the commentary. Great first couple of touches. Excellent finish. And then second half, very, very comfortable. I never really looked like they were going to threaten him. It was very comfortable in the end. But I said at Twitter at half-time, and I also said in the group chat before half-time as well, against a better and more prolific side, we could have been 3 or 4 down. Thankfully, we weren't, and I'm delighted with the victory, but defensively, that first half, again, was an absolute shambles.
And I know we'll get on to speak about the whole game, Dave, but as I say, if it wasn't for Stuart Armstrong's brilliant equaliser tonight in the first half, I think we might be speaking about another defeat but drop point for Scotland tonight.
Yeah, I mean the comeback was very, very good from Scotland. I mean, we got off the fairly slow start as Graham alluded to there, and Grant Hanley giving away the ball away after 7 seconds, and you just look at your head going, oh, what's going to happen here? And Nathan, even there was a few harsh passes, Nathan Patterson could control one, we dropped away for a throw in, and you did wonder what was happening. But and then Armenia opened the scoring. And in all fairness to the hosts, they did have chances to either stretch the lead or they did have a couple of chances where they threatened the Scotland backline. So we had to be resilient at certain stages in the opening 20-25 minutes, but Stuart Armstrong showed his quality. Stuart Armstrong and Ryan Christie, as far as I'm concerned, are 2 different players. Ryan Christie is one of these players that he's not a poacher, but he's one of these players that will wait for the ball. He won't do the deep and diligent work. He's one of these players that will expect the ball and then do his creativity. Stuart Armstrong's one of these players that will come in from deep. He'll look at and get into holes and find wee pockets to expose. And he did that expertly tonight. 2 goals to his name and a fantastic evening's work. But from a Scotland persuasion, just a good evening's work overall as well. So no complaints in terms of second half performance. But I do agree with Graham as well. Had we been playing a side with more prestige or more calibre or more they had more of a streetwise approach about it, I think we would have been on the other side of that defeat. So good 3 points, and that's all that matters, because ultimately some of the players will be tired from a long, hard season, and now it's summer holidays for the players.
Graham, you were saying in the group chat also, shambles at the back. I was saying it was too easy at the back as well. And Jack Henry was all over the place at one point in the game. In fact, I thought it was not in the park. I thought it was round about elsewhere. It was absolute. I think that was his worst game for Scotland tonight. So what do you think of that? Before we come on to speak about the positive stuff, but I thought that was a big negative tonight as well. And I think as well, what I was saying about the other day was, it's a funny position Scotland was in tonight, because if they won, they would say, well, we're expecting Scotland to win, but if they get beat, they're saying, well, why did you get beat off of that wee kind of diddy team? That's a good Scottish word, by the way, on their Tuesday night. But I guess it was all, like, defence was all over the shop.
Yeah, I mean, when you saw the starting lineup, you're looking at Grant Hanley, McTominay, and Hendry, and you're thinking, oh dear. I mean, that's just not going to go down well. And, after 6 minutes, you're a goal down. And, I know McCoy was talking during the commentary about it could have been a foul. I didn't see a foul. I just thought Grant Hanley was dreadful for that first goal. He gets knocked off the ball too easily. It's a simple finish for the guy. But, yeah, I mean, Jack Henry was awful tonight. I don't know what. His passing was poor. Defensively, it was all over the place. The amount of times that ball got played over the top and he got caught out every single time. And as I say, if Armenia were a little bit more clinical, we could have been 3 or 4 up. We took so long again to get started tonight. I did say on the Ireland show last week that I thought Scotland would dominate the ball. We had a lot of the ball in that first half, but didn't really do a lot with it. And again, you were looking for where's the creativity coming from? And that really was provided by Stuart Armstrong. But, defensively, again, we just look an absolute joke, to be honest. Now, I know we had players missing tonight. Again, Andy Robertson wasn't there. You're missing Kieran Tierney. There's no McTominay. Not McTominay. There's no McKenna. There's no Suter. But you're playing against not a great Armenian side. And every ball over the top was causing the problems. And against a better team, would have been hammered tonight. And that's my worry. But listen, positive thought that, second half, far more comfortable, really good finishing from Che Adams. I'm delighted for him that he got his goal. John McGinn, really good finish again for his goal. But we need to get a lot stronger defensively. Now, we've got 3 months now till the next game. You'll have players back for that. I would hope it'll be a lot better, but we can't be playing like that against a better team because we'll get punished every time.
Comment coming in. Please keep the comments coming in, whether you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube as well. This comment said that Scotland were caught out too often with the ball over the top. And yeah, I think he's right that the whole of the first half, it was like, Scotland were like, basically, come on, because they were leaving big gaps all over the field, and we were lucky it wasn't 2-0 before they went down to 10 men.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as I said, we had to show a level of resilience in opening 20-25 minutes because Armenia were assigning top, and when Hanley's giving away defensive mistakes and handling McTominay and deal with Armenian attackers for the Armenia goal, you do think to yourself, this is going to be a carbon copy how Saturday night panned out. Thankfully it didn't, and thankfully we got the job done. But in terms of the first half, it was good that we had that balance, and we saw the progression from the first half to the second half. What I would say to elaborate to Graham's point is, I think tonight's gave Steve Clark's a lot of answers. He had a lot of questions before tonight, both in terms of his own personality, his own management skills, his own management calibre. But I think he's answered a few questions tonight. And what I mean by that is, I think he's answered a few questions in the sense of he's understood a bit more about his defence. because McTominay and Hanley, it's just not a good partnership. There was no John Souttar and no Scott McKenna tonight. I would love to see if he plays a 4 at the back, or if he plays a 3 at the back, or if he plays a 5 at the back, whatever have you. I'd love to see John Souttar and Scott McKenna both involved in that 3 or 5 respectively, just to see what difference there is. Because McTominay and Hanley just doesn't do the job for me. So yeah, in terms of that, I think it's answered Steve Clark a lot of questions tonight, where we get far too exposed, even against a diddy side such as Armenia. So I think that question's been answered. Also, there's been a lot of outcry regarding the line Christie of late. I think Stuart Armstrong's answered that question in his own respect in terms of the moves that he made, in terms of pocketing runs and obviously exposing the Armenia defence as well. John McGinn, I thought he was a real leader tonight. Andy Robertson's ultimately the captain of this country. I made the point in the SFF podcast last night. I don't think Andy Robertson's a leader. I don't think he's captain quality. I think he's football quality, and I think he's got a leadership in terms of football ability. But I don't think he's a captain quality player. I think John McGinn is. He's got the charisma, he's got the character, he speaks, he's got everything that you require in a captain. And for me, I thought John McGinn was absolutely superb tonight.
Graham, let's speak about my man over match tonight. And, nobody kind of listens to me sometimes, but it's Stuart Armstrong. And I think Dave read my mind, because that was my next point that I was going to make about Steve Clark kind of worked out that you can't leave Stuart Armstrong out that team.
For once, we're not talking about man of the match being Craig Gordon.
Yeah.
I thought Armstrong was very good tonight. I thought he played really well. The 2 goals aside, I thought he was really good. His movement was good. He linked up with Shea Adams a few times. You know what? I'm really reluctant to give. I'm not going to say give massive credit to Scotland tonight, because it was a good win, but it was against a very poor Armenian side in the end. Now, I'm not taking away for Scotland. It's a good win in the end, but they did have 10 men for most of that game. If they didn't have that man sent off, it might have been a different game. So yes, I'm delighted with the victory, but let's bear in mind it's against a 10-man Armenian side who, to be honest, were causing us a lot of problems in that first half. So yes, Stuart Armstrong was very good. And the second half, I thought he was very impressive. He was making the right runs. He was showing good movement. And I thought, he was definitely man of the match. His second goal is a brilliant, brilliant finish. As Alan McCoy said during the commentary, his 3 touches were fantastic, and it's a great finish. So he deserves a lot of credit. I think I would definitely have him start in the next game in a few months' time. But I think we need to. I said this after the game on Saturday. Stop playing 3 at the back, because 3 at the back does not work, and it showed that again tonight. I think for me, you have to play 4, and I think when he eventually comes back in, you're going to have Kieran Tierney to come back in. I completely agree. John Souttar, from me, when he's fit, should be starting. Left back, I think you have Andy Robertson at left back, Kieran Tierney in centre, possibly John Souttar, and maybe Ralston at right back. I'm not sure. But for me, you have to stop playing 3 at the back, because that, for me, just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think as well that even though Stuart Armstrong was my man of the match, and I don't know how you guys feel about that, but maybe a bit behind him was Shea Adams. I thought, apart from his goal, he put in a decent shift, Dave.
Yeah, when you've got a striker fit and fine and scoring goals, it's something you always crave for, because we've spoken the last few shows about strikers not scoring goals, or strikers not doing enough, or strikers not being good enough, all those type of phrases that we've used on these shows. So it's good to see strikers scoring goals, and it doesn't matter the opposition. There's 2 posts in a bar for a reason, and it's to put the ball in the back of the net. It doesn't matter how you do them, corner, through the middle, top bin. It's how you score goals. And for me, Shea Adams will get a lot of confidence out of that tonight, because he's been an unlucky striker, so to speak, where he's had chances. He's always gave his all whenever played for Scotland. He's just not had that rubber green. And for me, I'm happy that he's changed that to an extent tonight. And which obviously rounds off a good evening's work. And what I would say is the formation incorporated and implemented by Clark helped massively, where Armstrong massively played as that number 10, and then John McGinn pretty much a number 8 type of player. And then obviously your deep wide midfielders as well. And then Adams was left to pretty much not be a poacher, but he was pretty much left to be a balance of 9 and 10 in his own right, where he did do some work. But also, he was also a number 9 where he was able to be a poacher and able to go and get goals. For me, I thought Clark was astute tactically tonight, and that all really helped towards the win.
Do you think as well that we were busy? I don't know if it was correctly, and I need to watch the show back again from Saturday night if we were too hard on Stevie Clark. But do you think this performance in the win would buy him a bit more time, Graham? Or am I still being a bit kind of hard saying that?
No, I mean, I think it probably does buy a bit more time. But again, you have to look at the fact that, I mean, we're down to 10 men. We're playing against I don't want to say they're a bad side, but they're not the best side. And I think, you saw in the first half the problems that they were causing us with that ball over the top. But I think he does probably buy himself a little bit of time. Any win's going to buy you time. And I think second half was very, very comfortable. I mean, I didn't really do very much because he only had 10 men. But, I mean, I said on Saturday, I find it very hard to criticise Steve Clark because I think he has done a good job. But Saturday, he deserved the criticism because it wasn't good enough. Tonight, that first 40 minutes, I think it was still quite poor in my eyes. But he's got the win, very comfortable. And yeah, I mean, I'm pleased for Che Adams that he's got his goal. I think he does deserve it. He does work really hard. And he was lacking that finish. And I was really pleased. It was a really good goal as well. A really good finish and good movement. So I think he will take a lot of positives from that. And again, I think you look at like Greg Taylor, I think he wasn't massively overworked. I think he did okay. And I think I'm delighted for John McGinn to get that goal as well, because I think, again, for me, he's one of Scotland's best players. So I'm pleased that he got a goal. I think I would have liked to maybe have seen Ross Stewart come on, maybe 20 minutes to go, and try and get a goal as well, because there was more goals in that game if he wanted them. But overall, you've got to be pleased. A 4-1 victory away from home. And yeah, I think Steve Clark will be happy with that. But I will keep going back to the fact that for that first 40 minutes, Scotland defensively were all over the place. And against a better standard of team, we probably get hammered tonight.
You mentioned about Che Adams, and I mentioned about his goal. I'm just watching the back here, and it make it look easy, if that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, he had to do a lot of work with the ball before he kind of like passed it round the goalkeeper. But was a decent finish.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it's a distinct striker's finish, and that's ultimately what strikers are judged on. If you're not scoring the 1-on-1s against the goalkeepers, there's no point in being a striker as far as I'm concerned. So in terms of Che Adams, really good finish, because obviously around the goalkeeper and then tucked the ball and dispatched the ball away. So good finish, and obviously good for Che Adams' confidence, and hopefully he can kick on from here. September is a big period for Scotland in terms of Nations League campaign and moving on to see if we can get to Euro 2024, which would be massive for Scotland again, and also massive for Steve Clark. So Che Adams will get a lot of confidence from tonight, I think, yeah.
And John McGinn, a bit of a quiet night. I know you said earlier on, Dave, that he had a decent game, but a quiet game. But he got his goal as well.
I think he had a quiet game more due to the fact that he was a captain tonight. He was never going to be this player that was going to be A to Z in terms of box to box. He was always going to be this player that was just going to do his diligence, marshal the game, and do well. He was never going to be a box-to-box player, because ultimately, if you're a captain of a team, you're never going to be a player that will go box-to-box. Your Gerrards, when he was captain, he was never a box-to-box as such. Lampard was a difference, right? Just to give you parallels here. Lampard was a difference because he wasn't a captain, if you understand what I mean. John McGinn, there's a difference when you're a captain. Hashbury Stumbles coming here saying Robertson would be better if he was free to exploit his strengths rather than the captaincy. This is the point I'm getting at, right? John McGinn was the captain ultimately tonight, right? So he was always going to have a different dimension to his play tonight. Good that he scored a goal, 100%. Well taken. And this is what I'm saying. John McGinn was good in terms of the character he implemented in the game, his approach towards the game, attitude, his camaraderie, character, and he showed everything you'd ask for in a captain. It was a captain's-like performance. It was a quiet performance, but sometimes when you're a captain, these types of performances you'll end up getting either undermined or you'll get under the radar. You'll either be undermined or under the radar just in terms of the way you play. So he did have a quiet game, but also in the same sentence, he did play a massive part in Scotland achieving the outcome which they did tonight.
If you've just joining us we're on Indie Live Radio or Independent Live tonight. We're on till 8:30 tonight. You're with me, Michael McEwan, Graham Duffy, and Dave Smith till 8:30 tonight. And if you've just coming from work or coming back, like Dave was, an hour into the game, fell asleep. Oh, sorry, I never meant to do that.
Not tonight.
I was Armenia 1, Scotland 4. Armenia finished the game with 9 men. Don't forget you can comment on Twitter. Just look for a handle at Locker Room Indie on Twitter, or you can comment below our wonderful faces on Facebook or YouTube. And there's many comments coming in. Keep them coming until 8:30 tonight. And I should say, guys, that this is my last show. Yes, last show for a while. We'll be back on the 22nd of July, bigger and better for the new season. And that doesn't mean to say I'm leaving. I'm still be here, but bigger and better. And no comments on that one, guys, okay? Especially Mr. Duffy. So yeah, I mean, decent night's workout for Scotland tonight, Graham, you would say?
Yeah, I think second half it was ended up a training exercise, really. Craig Gordon didn't have really anything to do second half defensively. We weren't really tested, thankfully. And yeah, it was a decent end. Well, I'm not going to say entertaining because the second half really wasn't a lot to talk about apart from the 2 goals. But yeah, decent work in the end. A really good win. I would say that Armenia's discipline was horrendous.
Yeah,
if you look at the sending off, it's a really poor tackle, and then you've just been booked, and you go up to John McGinn and put the head in his head. I mean, right in front of the referee is absolutely pointless. horrendous discipline, and even second half they were doing it as well. Just really a lack of discipline from Armenia, and obviously the second sending off as well. It's just stupid. It's frustration, but it's stupid. And that, in the end, has cost Armenia tonight because, as I say, up until about the 40, up until the sending off, they were well in the game and they were causing us problems. But yeah, in the end, a very, very comfortable second half performance. And just, you're happy with the victory. The Scotland fans that are there tonight that have travelled all these miles again will be very happy tonight, and rightly so.
Yeah, can I just elaborate on what Graham said there? Just in terms of Armenia, they were always going to be an arrogant team to play against. Eastern European countries have a purpose about them. When things don't go right for them, they have an arrogance about their play. Armenia were like that tonight. They were like that last Wednesday at Hampden as well, and they remind me a bit like Turkey, because when they go against tougher Turkey are similar as well. And John McGinn did one thing right for me when the player gets sent off. Do you guys maybe know what it is? Right, he retaliated first. If you retaliate first. Don't retaliate second. If you retaliate second, bye-bye, off in a bath. John McGinn retaliated first. No animosity, no friction, no body language to ask the question, but no body language to suggest, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to murder you, assault you, whatever. He did things properly. He did things like a captain. Yes, he had a quiet game, and that's ultimately what he'll be marshalled for on the park. But in that particular situation, he performed like a captain, and that's the bottom line here, right? So you can say quiet game all you want. John McGinn, in that particular situation, helped out his country massively, right? Because that was a defining point in the game as far as Scotland were concerned. That was a defining point where mind games had to be played. Being dogged had a part to play in that. John McGinn did that superbly. On the stroke at half time, John McGinn knew that Scotland had a bit of momentum about them. John McGinn's like, I'll do this properly. I'll retaliate, but I'll retaliate my ground. I'll stand my ground. It's like watching Green Street or Football Factory where they're fighting each other. And I don't mean to try and promote fighting here, just to clarify here, but it's when you're in Green Street or Football Factory, you stand your ground, but you don't get involved after that. I thought John McGinn was absolutely magnificent in that situation. He was a captain for me.
Let's go back to Promise here. We will speak about the positive stuff, but Graham mentions a very kind of interesting point there. When Amiga went down to 10 men, we looked a better team. But I don't know about you guys, but it was worrying for me because when Amiga was, when they were 1-0 up, Scotland was playing the ball about at the back like it was a pre-season game. There wasn't any for we're 1-0 down, we better get back into this game. So I think that was the only worrying thing for me tonight, Graham, was when we were 1-0 down, we weren't kind of saying, we weren't going to chase the game and say, we better get up the park. But they were passing the ball back and forth at the back, and there was no kind of movement, and nobody wanted the ball as well.
Yeah, I think, before the game, you're thinking, right, Scotland, start the game well. The worst thing you want is to go a goal down. And what do? We go a goal down early. And then I'm thinking, right, where are we going to get a goal from here? Because we don't really create a lot. So, I was delighted when we actually got that goal. And as I say, it's a really good finish as well. And I think after that, we kind of settled down a little bit, but I was always worried about that ball over the top because it happened so many times during that first half. Jack Henry and Grant Hanley especially were getting caught so much under the ball, and I did worry. But, the sending off, as I keep on saying, the sending off completely changes the game. It changes the momentum passes to us, and then we get the second goal pretty much straight away. And after that, there wasn't really any concerns after that. Second half, very comfortable, but I was very concerned during that first half because I couldn't see where the goals were coming from. So I'm delighted for Stuart Armstrong. I thought, as you say, he was very good tonight. I'm delighted he's got those 2 goals. But I just keep going back to the fact that defensively, we need to get that sorted because that, for me, was just so poor. And, it's not the first time we've said this. It happened against Ireland. It happened against Ukraine. The ball over the top caught us out every time. And for professional footballers, that shouldn't be happening.
I think the most important thing is 3 points here. I mean, we can say all we want about performances and way we play football, way defences are structured and everything like that. And defensively, we were capitulation tonight. Luckily, we were playing a side in Armenia that don't offer too much of a threat in the forward areas. And that was a good thing as far as Scotland were concerned. But ultimately tonight was about getting 3 points, playing much better than we did Saturday, playing with a better purpose than we did on Saturday, and in terms of that, obviously getting the win. And that was the most important thing from a Scotland point of view. So, and I'm glad to see Craig Sheridan is a big fan of myself. So, thank you very much for that, Craig, and much appreciated. But in terms of tonight, 3 points, most important thing. And in terms of moving forward, I think we've learned a lot. I think we've learned a lot from the last week where Armenia hammed enough for very little. Saturday, well, let's not go there. And tonight, still little wee pieces to fix in the jigsaw. But yeah, I think we've got a sustained period now where we can look at things, and I'll stand by my opinion that if you get John Stewart and Scott McKenna involved, I think we're a much more structured outfit defensively, which is ultimately our downfall at this precise moment in time, which ultimately cost us on Saturday evening there. So there's a lot of questions still to answer, but there's a lot of answers been answered as well. I think that's a good thing as far as Scotland are concerned, because Steve Clark was under justified criticism on Saturday evening, but I think he's answered some questions very, very well.
And I think Craig Sheeran made a good point about the confidence, because you know yourself, guys, the more times you get beaten, the more times you put on a bad performance, the confidence just goes kind of like downhill. I mean, you could say that about St Johnstone this season, particularly after they won the double last season, and yet they won the playoffs as well. So for now, football kind of like changes. And Craig was making the point now about the confidence goes so quickly, and it does. But hopefully by that 4-1 win, and I know Glenn was saying about it's on the media, but as I always keep saying to you guys, that it doesn't matter who you're playing against, if it's France or if it's Hill. No offense to people watching from Hill juniors here as well, but you still got to beat them.
Well, you play who's in front of you, Graham, when you go,
Yeah, and I think, now we've got a few months to wait for the next game, but those two games are at home against Ukraine and Ireland. We've got to be looking to pick up 6 points for those two games. I think we're capable of doing it, but we've got to play better than we did against Ireland and Ukraine in the last two games against them. But I think that home advantage might help. But yeah, Craig Sheridan's right. It's a massive confidence boost. We scored 4 goals away from home, we win the game. And after Saturday, the win was what mattered. So I'm delighted we've won the game, and it just gives Steve Clarke that little bit of a confidence boost. And hopefully, by the time September comes around, we'll have a few more players back, maybe a few more players added to the squad as well. But, you've got to be delighted with a win tonight. But as Craig Sheridan says, that long ball issue in the first half has got to be addressed, because I guess a better team would be in trouble. But delighted with the win, 4 goals away from home, and I'm really pleased for Stuart Armstrong tonight that he's got those 2 goals. I think he worked really hard tonight and deserved that.
I'm very delighted, not because Scotland won, it's because David Ferguson's here, and Josh has joined us too as well. You wouldn't realise that David or Josh is Scotland fans as well. So delighted to see you both. And what was your reaction, first of all, David Ferguson, on the game tonight?
Yeah, obviously delighted. Apologies for my delay. That link to tonight's show went into my spam basket. Michael, I couldn't find it. Apologies for that. But delighted to be able to join you and listen to what Graham was saying there. It's good, obviously good for them to finish on a high, remind themselves that they can score goals, that they are actually not a bad team when they play. Obviously, as I'm sure boys have talked about, there's still a few areas there that they won't be happy with, that some of the defending and some of the organisation. But Michael, I don't like to make excuses, but I always, as a journalist, you're always looking for reasons for things as opposed to excuses, and it's very easy to suggest it's excuses when you start to try and understand what's going on. And I think the last few weeks, one of the challenges, particularly against Ireland, was we've got a group of players that we rely an awful lot on. And as you'd expect, there's boys there that are playing in England. That makes a difference for us at the moment. When we're talking about a golden generation, or boys that are getting to Euros, possibly getting to World Cup, and talking about a great generation of players coming through, it's actually predicated on a group of boys who are playing in England, playing at a really high level. Who's that in the background? That's not me.
I think Dave's actually laughing because Scotland won the game. I'm not actually.
Is that what he's excited about?
Ask him. Yeah.
So I think one of the things I was looking at last week, Michael, with the Republic of Ireland, is we're relying on a core of players there who are playing in England. When you look at how many games they've played and where this is in the season, I think that's been a factor for them. When they're trying to work out why were they so flat, why were they not playing the way that we can expect them to play. These games been tagged on at the end of a season when these boys are playing 40, 50 games and more, and they've been crucial, big games. Andy Robertson is playing big games week in, week out. So is McTominay, trying to lift a team that are struggling in England. Stuart Armstrong, similar. And I think that's been a reason. I think that's been a reason why they've come together. They've thought it might just happen. They've had a really great camps with Scotland in the last year or two. and then found actually it's not as easy as that. And so I think we've had maybe a wake-up call as to how hard it is to play at this stage of the season and to keep performing, keep working, as a team the way they have for Scotland the last couple of years. It's a reality check, perhaps, that it's not as easy as that. You really have to be able to find your straps. And I think tonight it wasn't perfect, but we saw the Scotland team going out there to prove a point. And I think they've done that and scoring 4 goals and showing that they're a better team than Armenia, that they should be and will be challenging for the group. We'll see how it goes with Ireland. It'd be great if Ireland did us a favour tonight. But I fully expect Scotland to be able to bounce back from what we've seen in the last few weeks, last couple of weeks.
Before we ask Josh about his opinion tonight in the game, but he's been with the Tartan Army the last few games. Obviously, you were over in Republic of Ireland at the weekend, and disappointing. I know that maybe not for you, Josh, for the whole weekend, because I have saw some photos on social media. So I let the cat out the bag there. But yeah, so just tell us about the mood and the kind of camp, as it were, in terms of the Tartan Army for the past few games before we go on to tonight's game.
Sorry, mate. I don't have as good sorry for the lateness. I don't have as good an excuse as David. I was watching. I was, other than the fact I was watching the game in the pub because I refuse to pay Premier Sports, so I was a wee bit late getting back there. And my voice is still kind of recovering from Ireland. It's been a weird camp. It's been a poor camp, to be honest. I think after Ukraine, it was just about flat. Then we got picked up a little bit, beating Armenia at home. And then, we get just really brought right back down on Saturday in Dublin. The atmosphere at the game and after the game, I've got to be honest, it was pretty poisonous. There was a lot of abuse and a lot of swearing at the players, the team, for that performance and the way that they went about the game. It was a gutless performance in my view. It really wasn't great. So I think they deserved the criticism that was coming their way. Dublin was great. I mean, I suppose that's the thing. The performance was almost as terrifying as the price of pints in Temple Bar. But yeah, I mean, life. Yeah. Well, tell me about it, mate. No, it was. But look, great trip. It's always a jovial atmosphere, with the Tartan Army. It doesn't matter where you are. But at the game itself, in terms of the football, it was a bit flat after the game. Just a real bit of disappointment. We will see tonight. If Ireland go out and win tonight, then we're potentially back on to possibly win this group. Then we will need I probably will need a good result away against Ukraine. I would like to think, or at least beat both Ireland and Ukraine at home. So yeah, but I mean, me personally, after the win tonight, it was a fairly good performance against an Armenian team. I would have liked more goals, if I'm honest. I know it was 4-1, but against 9 men, I would have liked us to kick on and really put them to the sword tonight. Once it was kind of 3-4. But the standard was good. I thought Armstrong was absolutely superb tonight. I thought probably tonight was his best game that I've seen him play in a Scotland shirt. He was really, really impressive, and I think he's went a long way tonight to stake his place in front of Ryan Christie in that kind of position. So yeah, I'm fairly positive about the the games in September now. Just need to start planning the trip over to Poland or wherever this Ukraine's game's being held.
Josh, we did a poll on Saturday after the game, basically saying, should Steve Clarke keep his job? And the majority of fans were like, no, he shouldn't. What was your and your mates' thoughts after that game? And did you see that performance coming? Because I don't think any of us did.
Nah, I never seen it coming. Not in a million years seen that coming. And it probably was the worst result that we've had since that night in Kazakhstan. Just based purely on where Ireland were or are. We don't know if they've turned a corner yet. But yeah, based on where Ireland were, where we were, it came out of nowhere. I thoroughly expected this to go there and beat them. I've never once been one to question Steve Clarke's position so far. Anyway, I think he's been afforded a few freak results. Actually, I don't even think the Ukraine one was a freak result because Ukraine are very good. So but I do think the Ireland result was shocking. The standard with which we played that night was very poor compared to Ukraine. I think Ukraine were just much better than us on that night. And we never really gave ourselves a good showing. But against Ireland was quite different. We were terrible, and it was gutless, the performance. Actually, I agree with David quite a lot about the idea of these games being at the end of the season. Really, one thing we did say after the Ukraine game, particularly, was that the fact that the games were moved was probably a curse for us. But that's just, there's no point in there's no point going over that. That's what happened, and the games were moved to March, and we had 4 games crammed into the space of 2 weeks. So yeah, we'll see how things go in September. But I'm still 100% behind Steve Clarke. The progress in the last 3 years. Let's cool heads need to prevail. And one of my favourite sayings ever is that people are very good at feeling fast and thinking slowly. Steve Clarke has taken us leaps and bounds. Remember, Steve Clarke came on after, basically on the back of that night. I know there was the San Marino game, but basically after the back of that Kazakhstan result was when Steve Clarke, he was going to come in. I know there was the San Marino result, but I think it was a foregone conclusion that Alan McLeish was going to get sacked that night. So from that point, and where Steve Clarke's taking us to now, taking us to our Euros, taking us to a semi-final of a World Cup, a playoff semi-final of World Cup, and finishing second in a very competitive group. He's got my full backing still.
That's interesting, Josh. Comparing that to how you felt in Dublin and coming out of that game, did you say earlier that you felt everything that was being said by the supporters? Did you agree with them that Steve Clarke's position was in question then?
No, at all, David. I think people are always quick to jump and say questions need to be asked, and I agree with that. Questions need to be asked, but just because you're asking questions doesn't mean that you're saying that someone should be out of a job. But there were questions to be asked about that performance. Even tonight, actually, that first 20 minutes tonight was horrendous. The defending, the team really, it just doesn't look like a Steve Clarke team at the moment. When Steve Clarke came in, within 6 or 7, 8 games, he'd made us defensively solid, and he'd got us a good back line of players. And for the past 3 or 4 games, we've just not had that. That line tonight was terrible.
How much, Josh, do you think? Sorry, Graham and Michael, I'm jumping in here. The journalist in me can't help it. How much do you think that's come off the back of criticism of them that we're defending well, but we can't score or create chances? We're not scoring goals, which we had a lot of last year. Mm-hmm. We're into Euros and we weren't scoring goals. We looked safe. We looked sound a great draw with England, but we didn't look like we were going to threaten them really. And I wonder how much he's trying to change that. How much he's saying, look, we need to be moving quicker. We need to be countering quicker. We need to have more boys up the park to support the strikers. And inevitably, and all of us have had teams that have tried to do that. All of us, I know, have supported teams and clubs where you can get the defence. And managers say all the time, the defence is the easy part. You know, we can make a defence difficult to beat. We can make a team difficult to beat. But the hard bit is actually making them dangerous and scoring goals. And I wonder how much he's looked to try and change that in recent weeks. And actually it's exposed problems for us.
Yeah, I think there's probably an element of truth in that, mate. You know, you seen. I think putting McTominay into the back three at the Ukraine game was a poor. That was a poor decision. And for me, I think I'm finished with McTominay in defence. I think he's a far better player in midfield. He probably is, you know, wanting his team to score more goals, but you know, when you consider the fact that actually a lot of our players who are maybe the goal scorers of the team are actually a bit off form for their clubs. You know, G. Adams hasn't scored in months. Lyndon Dykes has been in and out of the QPR team. McGinn has, in my view, McGinn's fell off a cliff since Gerrard's come in at Villa. So, you know, there's our three kind of main goal threats that have been off form. And I do agree with you that we in 2021 we did lack goals under Clark. You've seen that in the, you know, the 1-0 against the Faroes and the likes, you know, the 2-0 against Moldova. But at the end of the day, we're winning games. And I don't care how we win games, you know. And I think too much is made about how many goals are scored. You know, that Denmark performance was one of the best times I ever remember watching Scotland, and we only won 2-0. You know, but we absolutely bossed them from start to finish. It's not just, you know, it's not all just about putting the ball in the net. Well, it is, but I think we've questions have to be asked of Clark, and I would like to see a more settled back four. For me, I think Suter's now undroppable. I think he's probably by far our best defender. He's brilliant.
I said this after the game on Saturday, and I will always stick to this. I do not want to see Scott McTominay in a back three ever again. It doesn't work. He's not a centre back. He never has been. And to be honest, he's had a very poor season at Man United. Yet he's still getting a game, which I really don't agree with. But I don't want to see him in a back three. He's not suited to a back three. And again, I said during the show earlier on, when I saw the team sheet today and I saw Hendry, McTominay, and Hanley, I was worried. And that first 40 minutes, every ball over the top was causing us so many problems. And I said before, if Armenia had more of a clinical striker, we'd have been in real trouble tonight.
Would you agree with this point, guys? Reagan Stevens, good evening, Reagan. Hopefully you're well. He says Scotland has won 8 of the last 10 competitive games. No UEFA nation has a better record than Steve Clarke is doing a great job as Scotland manager. Saturday's game against Ireland was disappointing, but I am just bringing some positive to the table. Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah, perspective, Michael. I think that's really helpful. You know, and I think it's one of the things that fans, you don't expect fans to have perspective. You know, fans are following the team because we're passionate about the team. Journalists can sometimes get carried away, and that annoys me, actually. It annoys me that journalists have got a job to be objective there when they're there, and we get dragged into it. I remember it myself. You know, you're a fan. That's why you're doing the job. That's why you want to be a sports journalist. But you shouldn't allow yourself to be dragged into that. And the idea of Clarke must go, you know, and listening to the guys on BBC, listening to William Miller and the others, you know, ex-players, you know, you're thinking there's nobody providing perspective. There's nobody saying, you know, let's look back at where we've gone over the last 2 or 3 years. And he's going to get it wrong. He's got to get it. Every manager gets some things wrong. He's not perfect. He's going to get some wrong formations that he thinks will work. They don't work. Whether that's his fault or whether it's players' fault, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't work sometimes. Scott McTominay, you know, I've never liked Scott McTominay playing in defence either. You know, I don't quite understand that. But he has played there and we've won games as well. So I can understand why Stevie Clarke has stuck with it at times. I don't like it. I think we've got better defenders probably coming through than Grant Hanley. I'd like to see John Souttar playing, more, and I think I think he's got better options there. And I agree with what Josh and Graham were saying. I think we need to get a settled defence, back four, and whether he's playing a 3 or a 5 or a 4, whatever, it needs to be settled. And maybe, I don't know, I thought he was going to go into these games and maybe use them to try out different players. England have done a lot. Gareth Southgate's done a lot of that, and I thought he would maybe be using it, and it's maybe not really been like that. But that's the key. He's going to get it wrong. He's got it wrong on occasions, but it doesn't mean when we look back in the last 2 years that we sack the manager. And you can understand fans saying that, but we need media and others to bring a bit of perspective to it, and sometimes it takes there's somebody getting in touch to point that out. I think that's realistic. We've got to remember where Scotland are. And I'd tell you, I had an interesting discussion. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and we had the Belgian director of coaching there, a guy called Chris van der Hagen, who talked us through how he'd taken Belgian football, how they had taken Belgian football from number 66 in the world in 2009 to number 1 in the world. And, I won't bore everybody with the whole presentation, but he talked about a focus on youth. He talked about changing the approach and coaching youngsters, bringing them through. Fascinatingly, one interesting stat, he said Kevin De Bruyne wouldn't have made it as a professional footballer in the old Belgium system before they changed in 2009. He said he wasn't picked up by clubs. He didn't play for Belgium till he was 19 years old. Great hat, Josh. And because he was too light, he was too little, he was knocked off the ball regularly, he wasn't coming through. But they created a second track of players that had been dropped by clubs and dropped out the system to try and maintain them, to see how they would develop and whether they'd come through later. And he said Kevin De Bruyne was a player who came through later. And he said, because we had this other focus on trying to develop players for the future, as well as looking at the ones that were making the headlines now, we managed to bring through somebody like that, who's going on to become a world-class player. So, it's interesting. We don't have that number of players in Scotland. We don't have that quality. I would argue that, not at the level, not at the quantity of it. We've got some great players. But one of the things that really annoys me, and we've talked about this before, Michael, are the number of players that are coming through at Rangers and Celtic who pick up the best young players at 14, 15, 16, 17, do nothing with them, don't give them a chance, and they disappear and they get offloaded at 21, 22 if they're lucky, and we might see them. We've got a lot of better talent that's coming through that we're not seeing the best of, and as a result we're going into top games with the likes of, with all due respect, Grant Hanley playing in defence, who, okay, he's doing a good job there. He does a job there, but he gets shown up at the top level, international level. And we've got to understand that if we're playing players like that, we don't deserve to win every game we're playing. There's going to be difficulties. And Steve Clarke is trying to hide those weaknesses within that team formation, which is a challenge.
I think that makes a very interesting point, Dave, and David, sorry. And we could be here speaking about getting told like the 1st of August in terms of when Celtic, Rangers and St Mirren's gets back as well football. But Graham Spears was on the show after the Ukraine game the other week, and obviously everybody was in the downer. But the serious point is, David, is this crop of kind of like talent. When Scotland gets beat heavily, because to be honest with you, Ukraine could get took 5 or 6 of us easier that night. And Josh would vote for that because he was at the game. But the serious point is, who have we got coming through? The likes of when Kieran Tierney retires, who's coming through? And I don't see anybody at the grassroots level, Celtic and Rangers and St Mirren, Hearts or Hibs or anyone else, anybody else. But I don't see anybody else coming through at the grassroots level, and that's a very serious point. And if we want to qualify for World Cups or European Championships, and no offense to the Grant Hanley fan club, but I don't think we can. I don't think we can go forward with him. And if we do, he's got to have a massive improvement in the game. But I don't see it there now. I don't know if I'm being a bit unfair there.
Michael, I agree with you with you and David to an extent. I think this camp Hanley's been very poor. But he had a great Euros. I thought he was very good for Scotland at the Euros. And he had a bit of a Hanley songs for a while there. But recently he's looked for Scotland recently like the player he was 5 years ago, you know. And I just wonder if he's maybe the ultimate confidence centre back. Because I mean, last year with Scotland, he was flying with Norwich, and they were coming up out of the Championship, and I thought he was very good. He was playing brilliantly for Scotland, and then he's went into the Premier League with Norwich this year. They've had a horrible season. He's been the captain at the heart of their defence, where they've conceded 80 or 90 goals or whatever it is, and they've been banjoed down to relegation. So I wonder if part of Grant Hanley's nature is that he's a confidence centre back. But I do agree with you. You know, we do need to find interesting thing you're talking about. Centre backs coming through. I'll be quite interested to see how Leon King does for Rangers next year. If he gets again, because he certainly looks like a bit of a talent. There's also, I mean, you've also got what's his name at Celtic. The boy plays centre back at Celtic.
Not Ralston.
Tip of my tongue here.
Come on, boys. Who's watching Celtic every week? Michael.
Graham.
I don't bring me into this.
Yeah. You've got me on my holiday break. I'm wearing my Scotland hat nowadays.
The youngster.
Come back to me.
Stephen Welsh, the youngster.
Yes, Stephen Welsh, that's it.
How did I get that? And the Celtic fan can't get that.
I told you, Graham. Told you.
Josh, there are loads. I mean, Michael, to answer your question, there are loads of players. There are loads of young talent. There's some fantastic young talent coming through. St Mirren, you know, they're my club, and we've got a tradition of bringing through young players. It's part. You have to be able to do that at a club like that because you can't afford to make big signings. So you have to be able to bring through young players. We've had some cracking players. We played Dylan Reid, a strong-looking midfielder, much bigger and stronger-looking than you'd expect a 16-year-old. He gets his debut against Celtic to help persuade him to stay on and sign a 2-year deal. He played against Celtic, played against Rangers for us, and didn't look out of place in the midfield at 16. You're thinking, yeah, a bit more development, and he's a player to watch. Now, at the time, I don't know whether there's any truth in it at the time, and since then, we've heard rumours that Bayern Munich wanted to sign him, that Spanish clubs were interested in him. And we've kept him for 2 years now. That contract's coming up for him, and we haven't played him. We signed Daniel Finlayson from Rangers, who was a real quality player at 16, 17, 18. Daniel Finlayson was one of the best fullbacks in Scotland. He didn't get a chance at Rangers. He came to St Mirren where you would think he'd get a chance. He had an injury for a period of time. He's not had a chance at St Mirren, and he's been sent now to Linfield in Ireland for the next stage of his development. Rangers have released 10 players recently from there who were in their B team, you know, and when you look through them, these were all boys that were playing for Scotland at under 17s, under 18s. I don't know if it's Maboud or Maboudi, Dapo Maboud. Quality young player, you know, who's got a brother playing at high level in England. Maboudi. You know, these are quality players that are not getting a chance at Rangers. Now, you understand Rangers have and Celtic, the challenges they've got. They've got to be winning every week. They've got to be picking the best players. The fans expect them to be bringing in boys from all over Europe. Fair enough. And it's a difficult one. I can understand what they're trying to do with their B team. But, Michael, when we're talking about talent coming through, we're wasting a hell of a lot of talent that is playing for Scotland, the best young players in the country. Understandably, they want to go to Celtic or Rangers. It takes a very strong kid or parent to persuade the child to go to a Motherwell or a St Mirren or a Dundee United or somewhere else to develop them when they've got the chance of going to Rangers or Celtic. But actually, that's what they should be doing. But so we've got quality and we've got talent, but we're not making the best of it, unfortunately.
Just to let you know, and this guy's name escapes me. Glenn would be able to help me again. He's just signed for your second club, Glenn, from Celtic Liverpool. He broke into the Celtic first team kind of the later part, just in the new year there. By the way, this is live and I can't believe I'm getting my names all confused. But everyone gets their choose.
Michael, are you talking about Ben Doak?
Yeah. So that, exactly. Yeah. So that, young talent like that is just going down south, but I think it's more to do with some money than anything else, David. So
when they're going at the age of 16, yeah, definitely, Michael. That's right.
Yeah.
But there's boys going older. There's boys that are in there till 18, 19, 20, 21. I think Daniel Finderson's about that 2021. These boys could be playing for Scotland had they been playing in the Premier League every week.
Just to let you know, 15 minutes gone. Ukraine now, Ireland now. We'll watch that one for you on until 8:30 tonight. You can also watch us on Twitter. You lucky people, and you can see Josh with his nice hat on. I think I would get Stuart Armstrong the man of match. I think I would give Josh that for his efforts with his heart, but that's just a personal opinion. You can comment on Twitter as well, not about Josh's heart, but about anything else they're talking about. Well, maybe it's heart, I'm not sure.
I'll tell you, mate, the real miracle is that I haven't left it in a pub somewhere.
Yeah.
That's impressive, Josh. That is well done.
Yeah.
I think you left most of your voice in a pub somewhere.
Yeah. I was going to put up the subtitles there, Josh, for you. But we're on Twitter at the Locker Room Indie, and you can comment on the video on Facebook and YouTube. Just comment on that below, and we would like to hear your comments on tonight's victory. Armenia won, Scotland 4. It's been a long time since Scotland won by 4 goals, I would say. I can't remember the last time, but it's been a while. Okay. That one went down well. And stuff like that. So so
was the last time Moldova? Was the last time against Moldova? Or no, Denmark. Denmark beat Denmark 4-0.
At Hampden.
2-0 versus Denmark. I think the last time we saw more than 4 goals might have been San Marino off the top of my head. 6-0 was that? No, 6-1.
Surely didn't get a goal off us. Surely not.
No, it wasn't 6-1.
Yeah, 2-0 Denmark. No, that's a clay game. Shit, that's good. No, but I wanted David and Josh's opinion about this. We were just having this kind of, we were speaking about it on the show after the disappointing performance against Ireland. And I would say that Scotland's in a no-win situation here, because if they won tonight, they would say, well, it's on the media that you were playing and all the rest of it. And if Scotland get beat, they would say, well, how are you getting a beat off of that? I'll say it again, #Diggy team as well. But I mean, before you come on, guys, Glenn was saying that the game changed when Armenia went down to 10 men. I can understand that, but David Ferguson, the whole saying in football, and you know yourself in journalism as well, that you can only beat who's in front of you.
Yeah, it's true, and that's right. And it shouldn't be taken for granted that teams at international level, that we can score 4 goals. And you're right, I was just checking. Faroe Islands was the last one that we scored 4 against. But and we don't score it very often. And I know you're right, Josh. There's no doubt that they could have scored more goals, and we'd like them to score more to absolutely bury a team. But I think from where they are at the moment, going from where that performance against the Republic of Ireland, you can almost see that's a 7-goal swing almost, isn't it? That that's maybe as good as we could hope for. But yeah, we shouldn't take for granted. These are international players, and yeah, it doesn't matter where they are in the rankings. Really, they've got players who will play for their country. They'll go out there, and you just have to look at some of the quality of some of the passing that some of these teams have, and how quickly they move the ball to realise they're decent players. I think we get carried away at how good our players are, and I go and watch St Mirren every week. I'm a season ticket holder at St Mirren. But at the same time, the quality of some of the football in our league is appalling. The players are fit, they're quick. Some of the players stronger, some of them, than they used to be. It's debatable. But some of the creativity and the ability to play in the last third of the park, the quality of crossing, the quality of balls in behind, some of it is appalling. And we watch it week in, week out. And you're asking those guys to step up and go and do something different at international level. Actually, we can't take that for granted. That's why the players that are playing in England are so important to us. And we've seen it for a long time, but it's much easier, obviously, to get in the Scotland team than it is to get in the England team. But guys like Che Adams and others, Lyndon Dykes, decent players, but they're not stunning players. They wouldn't be internationalists at many other clubs across Europe. They wouldn't be playing international. So, you're asking them to play at a high level, for international rugby. International football, it's maybe better than you can expect from them. So for us to score 4 goals against anybody is good. I can see your reaction, Josh, from Hungary scoring a goal against England. But that just shows you, we underestimate teams that we don't know much about. And England may be underestimating, hopefully, England are underestimating how good Hungary actually are.
And that's at home as well.
Can I make a point about that 2018 game where Scotland beat Albania? James Forrest had a cracking game that night, if I'm not mistaken. Was it that game? That game he scored a brace? And then he's well in the international picture now.
It's Panga.
He's not been getting a game, but he's not been getting a game.
See, James Forrest is out of the Celtic picture as well, Dave.
Yep.
He's not even getting a game for Celtic now. So, you're not exactly going to call him off. He's not even playing for his club.
I think his brother's getting more games than him at the moment.
I'd be more inclined to give Alan Forrest a call up.
Yeah.
That's a good point, that Alan Forrest is playing more regularly, scoring goals. So you're thinking about giving him a call up when James Forrest is by far a better player. By far, but his competition to get a game at Celtic is leagues ahead of the competition his brother faces at Livingston to get a game. But that's the difficulty. We've got boys sitting in the reserves at Celtic and Rangers, and that's my point from earlier, who would be good Scotland players and could be carrying Scotland forward. Now, they have to be playing every week to be able to do that, and it's not happening. That's a big problem we've got.
And I think as well, David, you kind of laughed when you said that comment, but yeah, I think he's been scoring goals for fun this season, but don't forget that James Forrest is a brilliant player, but he's kind of injury prone, you would say. Whereas Alan Forrest, if I'm not mistaken, he played the full season and he was scoring goals for fun. And
scoring goals for fun, Michael. I watched him regularly. He could beat us in run defence regularly. He's not international quality.
He's not. Yeah,
that goes to show you where James Forrest is at right now. That just goes to show you where James Forrest is at. Where 4 years ago, as Craig Sheridan's put here, he scored a brace against Albania alongside Ryan Fraser and Stephen Fletcher scored. That just tells you where James Forrest is at right now in terms of his playing personality, where he's not in the Scotland picture and he's not in the Celtic picture. But just before I let you continue, Michael, I want to make a fantastic point that Barry Anderson's made. I don't know if you've seen this, gentleman. He's saying lobby balls at linesmen, headering opponents, over the ball tackles, rammies and red cards. Armenia make the old Scottish junior teams look like choir boys. And I thoroughly agree with what Barry's saying there. And Albania, I don't know how old are you guys, David and Josh. I know Graham's a certain age, excuse my French, but that was a 1990s, early 2000s game, which, from my perspective and the generation I was growing up in, absolutely brilliant to see. But the game's evolved, unfortunately.
You don't see the number of tackles in the game now. It's certainly not international level that we used to see then. I'm probably the oldest on this call, Dave. So fine. I remember. I mean, my memory goes back to when Scotland played regularly in Euros and World Cups. I used to come home from school to watch Scotland in a World Cup all through the 80s. Sadly, I can remember that.
Yeah, I mean, Armenia were very, very poor tonight in terms of their discipline, particularly. Some of those tackles were very dangerous. There was one to the last one that got the second boy sent off. I think it was, I can't remember who it was on. It was on Campbell or Turnbull. And it was a real naughty one. He went over the ball completely straight into his ankle. And it really could have injured them. They were a fairly, it was a pretty naughty team to
wasn't it comedy? No.
My memory's not serving me well enough.
I know.
We're doing well tonight, guys.
Oh, tell me about it.
I wanted to get some thoughts here from Josh and David about a player that wasn't playing tonight. Aaron Hickey obviously started against Ukraine, and I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, "Oh, Aaron Hickey's not good enough for Scotland." He hasn't started since. Where do you see Aaron Hickey's position in the Scotland team?
It's funny you say that, Graham, right? Because I mean, me and a few of my friends were saying to each other prior when the team was announced for Albania. So Aaron Hickey comes in against Ukraine, the biggest game that we've played in 15 years, comes in out of position at right back, out of nowhere, and then he doesn't even play the next 3 games. So it's absolutely bizarre. I don't understand that. But I mean, anyone saying that Aaron Hickey isn't good enough for Scotland obviously hasn't watched Aaron Hickey in Bologna. I watch Italian football, and believe me, Aaron Hickey is plenty good for Scotland. He's a top fullback. He is very talented. He will definitely be a mainstay in the Scotland national team over the next number of years. I think that probably the hardest thing is going to be the competition between him, Robertson, and Tierney. But he's definitely what I've thought for a while is I had hoped that Bologna would start playing him at right back regular, because I think that's probably his biggest fault is that he does plays, he is so ambidextrous, so at times Bologna move him over to right back, but when they do move him over to right back, he's just, he's maybe not as sharp as he is at left back. I would prefer if someone just, if a manager just took him, says, right, you're playing right back now, you are a right back full time, and that would give us, a good bit of balance with him and Patterson and Ralston on the right, and Robertson and Tierney on the left. Yet to be seen though, but anyone at the only point I would make is that anyone who says Aaron Hickey is not good enough for Scotland has not watched Aaron Hickey.
I'd agree, Josh. I mean, I think even those who haven't had the chance to watch him in Italian football only have to look back to when he was playing at Hearts and the quality. You're looking at this young boy who was not looking out of place playing against Rangers and Celtic then either. Young lad. The interesting thing, Josh, and it goes back to, and this maybe shows my age, right? Dave, you're asking, I can look back now 20, 30 years. And when Scotland players were coming through in the 80s and they were starring for the Scotland teams, and some of them playing down south, they would go into the Scotland team, and unless they had bad injuries, they would stay there for a while. That's not happening now. And my real concern, you just mentioned Aaron Hickey, good example. Where does he go next? Where's he going to go after Bologna? Is he going to stay with Bologna? Is he going to disappear into Italian football? Is he going to go somewhere else? That's a big question, because we've just had a discussion there about James Forrest. James Forrest, when he came on the scene, when he scored those goals, Dave, he said he's going to play for Scotland for the next 10 years. He's not going anywhere. He's a quality player, winger like Jimmy Johnson, all the rest. That's the type of player we need to get in behind. And we'd have been talking about him for years. It's not happened. That's a big concern, is that it goes back to what I'm saying earlier. We're wasting a lot of talent, whether it's youngsters coming through that are not getting the chance to play professional football regularly so that they can take that step from the under 18s, under 20s or 21s into the Scotland team. It's not happening because they're not getting regular football. But also, you've got players like Aaron Hickey who are going elsewhere, and you can't blame the boys for moving. There's some fantastic money being offered, 10 times their salaries of what they can earn in Scotland to go and play in England and elsewhere. And then are they coming through? You're talking about Ben Doak. Great move for Ben Doak, 600 grand, I think it was, a move from Celtic at the age of 16. Huge, great move to go to Liverpool. And okay, this takes you back. This shows you how old. I remember a young St Mirren player going to Liverpool by the name of Frank McGarvey, went to Liverpool and we thought he's just going to rip it up in England. Never played for Liverpool when he went down there. A player that was quality, top striker in the Scottish League, comes back and plays for Celtic and goes on and has a great career. But, that's an example. Ben Doak could just disappear. One of our best talents at the moment. That's the concern. Aaron Hickey, I agree with everything you say, Josh. Anybody that's watched him, he's a quality fullback. He should be a mainstay of the Scotland team for the next 10, 15 years. But, we've got to look at how he's managed and the opportunities he gets. And that comes down to his parents advising him, his agent advising him. I would like people to think and to talk to players sometimes about that unique opportunity to play for your country. Not many people experience that. And I don't think that comes into enough of the thinking and the guidance and the advice some young players are given. Go to this club, you're going to earn a fortune. You might not play for the first team, but you'll earn a fortune. You're set up for life. Actually, speak to the kids themselves. They would much rather play for Scotland for 10 years and have lots of great experiences.
Do you know, it's really funny that like a few years ago, 2019, Aaron Hickey was thrown in to the cup final against Celtic. I think he was 16, 17 at the time, and he was up against James Forrest, who at that time was Player of the Year in Scotland. And now you're looking at Aaron Hickey potentially getting touted for 25 million, like for Arsenal and Brentford, and James Forrest is nowhere near the Celtic side. It's mental.
That's a good point. Look, before we let the guys in on that point, because what's in the Ukraine-Ireland game, 25 minutes gone off the game, Ukraine 0, Ireland 0.
Ireland 1.
Ireland have just scored.
Yeah, 1-0. Yeah, okay, I'm half an hour behind then. So O'Shea scored for Ireland. So yeah, yeah, that's a good point, like you've made, Graham, as well. If people want to comment on that, and we've only got like 10 minutes left of the show, so I just want to spend the last maybe about 10 minutes of the show before we all go and lie down in the darkened room. And by the way, before you say it, no, not all together, right? How do we sum up this period for Scotland? Taking it back to the Ukraine game, Josh, I know you don't want to look at that horrible night, but, sum it up for us. It's been a very kind of interesting period, but going into the games, everybody was on a bit of a high.
Yeah, we were riding the crest of a wave, weren't we, coming into Ukraine? And there was just so much excitement about the game. We just thought, if we thought the full hand in, we were just going to, do them, turn them over, and then go to Wales and do the same on the Sunday. Thankfully, we all booked temporary, we booked refundable accommodation for Wales. So got all that sorted as soon as the Ukraine game was over, and I managed to phone the digs and all that and cancel the bus down. But I suppose I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've seen, Michael. I put up on Twitter on Sunday a picture of myself sitting on O'Connell Street in Dublin on the ground, just with the word "scunnered" as the caption. And I fair to say on Sunday that's how I was feeling. Was pretty scunnered and pretty hungover. But do you know what I mean? After that game tonight, I think the main thing, I don't think it was a lose-lose situation tonight, because the thing is, we've won fairly convincingly, and it's not rectified what happened against Ukraine and what happened against Ireland, but it's moved the discussion on, and it said, right, okay, look, we're back on the horse, back onto winning ways. And it was actually, I was actually listening to Sports Sound on the way back for the pub there. And
how dare you? Josh?
I think it was at Kenny Miller. It was Kenny Miller or somebody made the point. It might have been Richard Gordon actually. that you look at the past 12 games for Scotland, eight wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats. It's not a bad run, you know, for international football. So perspective is key, I think. And, you know, we'll see what happens in September. I'm, you know, confident that this is just a blip, and, you know, we'll get back on it. The players will have had a pre-season in them at their clubs. They'll be fighting fit. You know, I thoroughly expect a lot more of the boys to be fresh and have legs about them, and hopefully less injuries. And we'll be able to kick on from there and end up going to Germany in 2024.
David Ferguson, I know that you follow the rugby team in the Six Nations, and it was a very disappointing campaign. But can you see some comparisons in terms of the rugby team and the Scotland team in the last few games?
Yeah, it's funny, Michael. I mean, you think you can see that across Scottish sport, to be honest. We're a small country. We don't have as many players as many other countries do, and it sounds like an excuse. It's not an excuse, it's a fact. So it also, we don't have the levels of competition. If you don't have the number of players, you don't have the levels of competition. You and I have talked before about the work I do with the Observatory for Sport Scotland. We've got one of the biggest declines of sport participation in Europe from the age of 12 years old on. So between 12 and 18, we have a steeper dropout from sport than any country in Europe. Now, Denmark, Scandinavia, other countries have done something to address that. We haven't. So we have still got lots of people walking away, kids walking away from football at the age of 12, 11, 12, 13, more than most countries. And as a result, we get to adult levels, and our players haven't had the same levels of competition at 16, 17, 18, 19 that many other countries have. Certainly England have got a much stronger system to bring boys through. They're much more developed. So those are facts. They're not excuses. I agree with Josh. I think when you look at the last few weeks, I think it's been a reality check for Scotland, for Stevie Clarke, for the Scotland players, who perhaps were getting a bit carried away at how good things were going for them, and for fans. It's a reality check in terms of where we are in Scotland. We have to work for everything. The players have to work. Stevie Clarke has to get it right. He has to get the team formation right. He has to be able to get the most out of the players, and the players have to be in a good place. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. We're relying on a core group of players that are playing at a higher level, that are training with high quality world class players. They've come into these few games tired. There's no doubt about that. They are tired because they've had very long seasons, mentally and physically, and that's taken its toll. You know, other players round about them are there to support them. But if we don't have our top players playing in top form, we will struggle against anybody we come up against. So at Josh's point about later in the year, boys being fitter, healthier, I think that's something that we need to take cognizance of. Scotland have to be at their best to be able to compete the way we did in the Euros, boys all together, and I think that's been the lesson. We can't be off form or missing players or unfit or tired and be able to qualify for a World Cup in Euros. Doesn't happen now. The quality of the teams that are around the world much higher than it used to be when we did qualify. So we have to have everybody on top form to have that chance.
Just to bring you up to speed in the games, still England 0, Hungary 1. Holland is beating Wales 2-1, and still 1-0 to the Republic of Ireland. Belgium is winning 1-0 against Poland. So yeah, that's you kind of brought up to date with the scores. Incidentally, before we finish tonight at 8:30, we'll be back on in the 22nd of July. It's been a long season. You're saying long season, David, for Scotland. It's been a long season putting up with David and not you, David Ferguson, but Dave Smith and Graham as well. Yeah, too many Graham. What's that?
I feel your pain.
Exactly. Well, you've only got to put up with them once in the blue moon, you know, and like I've got it. But no, seriously, I can say that because they're miles away from me and they don't know where I stay, so that's wonderful as well.
Michael, you forget. Me and Dave can click remove you from stream.
Well, yeah. You can do as you want. There's only 5 minutes left. You know, I've done all the hard work, as I always do, professional work. David Ferguson would back me up as a fellow journalist here.
Of course, Michael.
So yeah.
We stand together.
Yeah, sort of Darky, mate. Where have I heard that one before? Tommy Sheridan. And moving on. So Dave Smith, Graham, it's always been a pleasure sharing the platform with you. But the last few games, it's been up and downs. But what do you feel the last few games?
Graham, will I go first or will you?
On you go, mate. On you go.
Okay. Ukraine was a bit of a disappointment. I think Josh was right what he said earlier about the game getting moved from March to June in the context that Ukraine showed a lot more desire and a lot more purpose about their play that evening in question. It was very frustrating from a Scotland persuasion, and there was a lot of heartache. There was a lot of frustration around about that period just because of the way the game unfolded and evolved. So that was disappointing, but the positive thing was the reaction last Wednesday. But from a Scotland persuasion, offered very, very little in terms of Armenia. But we had enough about us to go and get the win. Ralston had a brilliant debut in that game in question, and obviously we got the second goal from McKenna and Sheriff had another. Had it not been for VAR. Saturday, well, we don't need to go there, but it was a total capitulation. And then tonight, it was good to bounce back tonight. And obviously, all the results are at this time, and speaking of Mayad, are going our way, such as Republic of Ireland winning against Ukraine at this precise moment in time. So, if you were to have a report card on the past few weeks, seafair?
I would say I would agree with that. I agree with C.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, the Ukraine game was disappointing because it was such a massive game, and the Ireland game as well was so disappointing. But I genuinely think I completely agree with Josh. I think Steve Clark's done a really good job. You know, I said before on the show on Saturday, you know, he's not a domestic coach. He can't go and sign players. He's got to use what he's got at his disposal, and I think he's done that. And yet, you know, the Ukraine game was disappointing because it was such a huge game, and that Ireland game, I did not see that coming. I genuinely thought we'd go there and win. And the performance, as Josh said, was gutless, and that was so disappointing. But I think in general, it's been a really good campaign. I think I said this on Saturday. The one thing that I really hope we can find is some other strikers, because we really have such a lack of strikers in that squad, and that is a worry for me. But I think for me, I think I'd probably give it a B plus. I think.
B plus, yeah. So, are we still in it? Because obviously we had to win tonight. Nothing but a win would put us back in kind of maybe not pole position, but a point we can do tonight, Josh, and we got the 3 points, and that was all that we were looking for at the end of the day.
If it ends the way the scores are right now, mate, then both Ukraine, Ireland, and us are on 6 points, and we've got 2 home games to play. So yeah. I think we'll get 2 home games against Ireland and Ukraine, and 1 Ukraine away, and it's not even in Ukraine. So I'm positive.
Okay, so thanks to the guys, very good ending. It's like any movie you would go and see at the cinema. Good ending to movie. Thanks to David Ferguson, Josh Henderson from the Scottish Football Podcast. Please check it out because I've been on there a few times. Never mind. And Dave and Graham will be back at the 22nd of July for the new season. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll see you soon. And see you soon.